even though I love the days we spent down in Croydon.
Yeah.
We're live, folks.
We spent some days down in Croydon doing all our videos, and if anyone's watching live now, we can see them all.
Yes.
But I was just saying, sort of off camera, and then obviously we went live. I didn't realise. I was just saying that, you know, these podcasts are very spontaneous. We sort of have an idea about what we're going to talk about in advance, and you know,
it's a bit less structured,
really well for us.
More, it is.
Yeah.
Okay, we are live now. Hello, everyone. We couldn't stop ourselves, but welcome to Academy of Astrology UK live stream podcast. And today with me is Marcos and Mandi. Before we start everything, I have some advertising to run. So, tomorrow is our very first lecture for our Mundane Astrology series. Sue Tompkins will give a lecture about Mundane Astrology, a crash course. This course runs from the 5 p.m. UK time. We still have a limited space, so, you know, if you are interested for this course, please, you know, I will post the link here, and so you can join us. And also, from 7 p.m. after Sue's lecture, we will have a free discussion, Mundane Astrology discussion group. So we will talk about what happened recently, okay? And so, but you have to sign up AOA-UK's mail list, so we can send you the detail. So I will also post this link underneath here, so you can, you know, join us to enjoy, to learn Mundane Astrology with us. Okay, this is a finish of advertising. So what's on this week? I mean, this is kind of a busy week for all of us, especially at this moment. I was kind of my head is everywhere because I'm so stressed. I'm not really stressed bad way, but I'm kind of one way very excited for tomorrow's course. I was planning this for a long time. And another is kind of a wow, you know, that is kind of a, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. Oh, you know what is kind of interesting. I mean, what happened this week, Mandi? Give us some idea.
Well, I think one of the things was that planet Venus moved into the sign of Leo. So that's exciting. So I think that's probably one of the topics we're going to sort of touch on. Do you want me to say a little bit about
yes,
Venus
please.
and Leo? Yeah, and then you guys will have your take on it as well. So
it's not quite, Mandi. It's in Leo. I'm just checking on my little phone app at the moment. It's in Leo on Sunday, so it's just in the last degrees. It's about to switch
Sunday.
now.
Awesome. So thank you for that. Should have checked my ephemeris before I started. But Venus is Venus is obviously, we think of Venus as the planet of relationships, which is true, but in a sense, none of us lives on an island, so absolutely everything in your chart tells you something about relationships. So even though it does tell you about relationships, and importantly, you know, I always tell beginners not to get so fixated on Venus as the only relationship planet. So that said, Venus is a little bit about, in kind of the way you relate to other people, it's a little bit about that give and take. You know, where Mars is about how you assert yourself and what you want, and that kind of warrior energy. Venus says a lot about how you compromise, how you negotiate, how you yield or not yield, and you know, how you try to please others or not try to please others. So Venus has got that kind of idea of how you relate to other people and how that works. Also, it says a lot about personal values and self-esteem as well. So it's about how you feel valued and what you value, what raises your self-esteem potentially. If it's difficult place or difficult transits, it can be about what might sort of hurt your self-esteem, for example. And one of the things that in the material world we judge our value on is sort of the money that we have, you know, our income, our money, our assets and things like that. So sometimes Venus will say, well, not sometimes, but Venus will say something about that. In Leo, so in the sign of Leo, I mean, we think about Leo in the positive way. It's how does it express itself? How does it relate to other people? Well, Leo can be warm and affectionate. enthusiastic. It can also be dramatic. You know, sometimes with Leo, there's a queen complex or a king complex. You know, there's a pride there. And I think, personally, I think a lot of the idea of Leo being stubborn is to do with that pride. You know, Leo, you know, wants to be valued and looked up to, for example. It's an incredibly creative sign. And again, Venus is very much associated also with creativity. So, you know, Venus in Leo is very creative, and sort of in that sign, it can kind of perhaps be a trigger for your own creativity if you want to sort of explore that. As well as being proud of Venus in Leo is quite gracious, can be quite gracious and can be quite generous. At best, it can be quite playful and incredibly loyal. You know, it wants to please you. Venus in Leo wants to please you. It wants to, but it wants you to be proud of them. And the other thing to say about Venus is, in the chart, it can be about how, you know, how you relate to other people, but it can also be about what you project onto other people, because that idea of Venus of being sort of give and take. Yeah, so that's sort of my very brief take on it. I'll hand over now to you guys.
Marcus, what's your view of the Venus in Leo, and especially from traditional view?
Okay, well, a few thoughts. I mean, just in general, Venus is a bit more comfortable in Cancer where she is now, because she's a sort of traditionally, archetypally feminine planet, cold and moist. Cancer is cold and moist. She's comfortable in Cancer. In Leo, she not so comfortable, but expresses a more. So if we're talking about archetypes here, Venus in the fire signs is more your like, it's more. This is a terribly misogynistic word, but feisty. It's got more attitude. It's a Venus with more attitude. So it's a bit more fiery. What I'm interested in here is the switch in the context, because we've got Jupiter in Pisces and Venus in Cancer, which is still now and has been for the last month. That's been really quite helpful, because those two planets have a generosity with each other, because Pisces is Venus's exaltation and Cancer is Jupiter's exaltation. So with Venus in Cancer and Jupiter in Pisces, those two planets are really loving each other and kind of helping each other out. So while we've got this Saturn with Mars chugging along towards that opposition next week, and this buildup of tension and stress, at the same time, we've got some kind of like alleviating factors of like maybe things feeling a bit more opened up. Restaurants are opening, people are able to go out and have a drink, people can ease up a little bit. When Venus switches into Leo this weekend, at the same time, I would say from this Sunday to the following Sunday, this Mars-Saturn opposition is going to really kick in. And that's because it's not only moving closer towards exactitude. I think it's exact on Thursday next week. I've just been checking, but it's also that this weekend, the moon is in Aquarius. So it's going to be making that aspect. And then next Sunday, it's in Taurus, which again, is going to be making that aspect. So what that means, boiling all that down, is that Venus entering Leo will kind of maybe take the edge off Mars a little bit. So some of whatever frustrations and antagonisms are going to emerge will be sort of mollified slightly by Venus there, because Venus is the only planet that can calm Mars down a bit. But there's also going to be, I would say in general, a lot of frictions and tensions in relationships related to people, just a sense of frustration, and Saturn is the big no. So it'll be interesting to see. I don't know how that's going to play out exactly, but like I say, Venus in Leo is a bit more feisty anyway. So I think it's going to be like that. There's going to be a little build-up of tension over this week. And as I say, the days that I would look at would be really, it's from this Sunday to next Sunday. It's exact on Thursday, but I'd look at both weekends particularly as being trigger points. So anyway,
so basically it's like the Mars from your point of view is not only the Venus in the Leo, is kind of
it's not joining, it's playing with others. Exactly. And it's helpful Venus will take the edge off this aspect, this Mars Saturn aspect, but it will also, because Venus is, as you said, Mandy, the planet of relationships and of luxury and of that kind of thing. The fact that it's going to be moving towards that opposition of Saturn with Mars is like, oh, you're going to take our toys away. Oh, I can't do this in my relationship. Oh, do you know what I mean? It's kind of like the Saturn saying no, not just to Mars, which is like, I want this and now I'm being stopped. It's like this. So, you know, if people have a lot of planets in fixed signs, for example, it might be a week of a bit of relationship tension or arguments over possibly money, although traditionally Venus doesn't necessarily rule money, but I don't disagree, Mandy. It rules things that you value, so that it can be over money. But anyway, just
but I think it is very helpful and very useful information, especially for me, because I have my Venus there.
Right, and your sun, and well, it's also squaring my ascendant. So
we are going to play a little bit, and you know, I don't know what's going to happen, but this will be fun, you know. Especially, I think toward to next week we have another important aspect because Venus going to conjunct with Mars.
Yes,
and that's why you say it's soft edge a bit.
Yeah, I mean, fortunately, that conjunction is happening after that opposition to Saturn. So it's like Mars hits Saturn, then Venus hits Saturn. And then it's kind of almost like, it's like if that was a relationship, first you have a massive argument and a breakup, and then you have the misery of like, oh God, this is all like your drama, and then you might have a reconciliation and all right, let's talk about our differences because things have gone really bad. Do you know what I mean? So I
really like your East Ender drama.
Thanks.
It's better to have the Venus come to Mars after the Saturn, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely, rather than before, for sure.
Venus wants to make things right and wants to come to some kind of agreement.
Things.
Do you guys think that,
sweet. Yeah. Do
you think Venus in Leo can be a little bit childish? A little bit. I think you said something, Marcus, maybe throwing the toys out the pram a little bit. Sort of, you know, anyone that's lived with a Leo will know that they're really good at sulking as well.
The funny thing, I mean, I think that is more of a Mars in Cancer thing, or almost the toys out the pram thing. But having that myself, I know that Mars in Cancer is the incredible sulk. It's terrible. It's a nightmare. But the Venus in Leo, you're right. I think it's because it's Leo's all about what are my needs. You know. So I agree. I think there's a potential for a feeling of frustration around unmet needs. What about me? What about me? You know, that.
Another thing, while you're talking about that, in my mind, it is the image of the Devil Wears Prada that both say, too late, so disappointed, in a very elegant way, but I just like, too late, so disappointed. And I was like, wow, yes, I like that drama. It'd be interesting to see how it plays out. I mean, does anyone have any ideas about, because I mean, one of the obvious candidates is Mr. Trump, although he hasn't been in the news much recently. It's across his ascendant, but it's not near his ascendant degree, which is much later. So it may not be.
I saw the film Cruella today, which is in the cinema, and it's about sort of it's you know it's sort of the it's supposed to be like the origin story from the 101 Dalmatians, but it's about two fashion designers who competing against each other, and the character of Cruella, it's full of drama, and they're trying to outdo each other, and there's lots of competition going on there. But there was one of the entrances that Cruella made. Just as we were talking about it, it felt very kind of Venus in Leo, because it was incredibly dramatic, because she totally upstaged the lady whose gala and party it was that she kind of gave crashed. And she turned up in like completely covered in a white cape, which was apparently you had to wear white to this gala. And she stood there on the catwalk. She lit a flame, so you've got the fire element of sort of Venus in Leo. Lit a flame, set fire to the cape, and which kind of just disintegrated in a puff of smoke. And underneath she was wearing this incredibly glamorous, beautiful bright scarlet red dress, and she's like, yeah, I've arrived. Haven't you know what I mean? You know when
that's
Yeah.
almost
Leo's entered the
perfect,
room,
isn't
right?
it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and also the villain, because like, you know, that the Mars Saturn aspect is very much an aspect of sort of retribution. It's very retributive. It's not very nice.
Yes.
But then the Venus adding that glamour to it, you know, that's perfect.
Yeah, it was
Okay.
a revenge. It turned out to be a total revenge story as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want
That's
to-
perfect,
Great
Mandy.
film. I would recommend it.
I
It's
want
good
to
fun.
dog you guys. I'm really
Fun.
sorry. I want to dog you guys away from Disneyland, come to Filthy London Street. I don't know. Have you heard about news about the UK's health secretary break the rule?
Matt Hancock.
Yes,
Yes.
and he not only break the rule and also have lots of fun, I think.
So he was snogging, which for our American or foreign audience means kissing his assistant, wasn't he? And he
Yes.
violated the social distancing rules.
Oh,
And
very much. I
that's
think
a
they have no
perfect-
distance.
Yeah, that's a perfect example, Rod, because obviously
Oh.
Saturn
I
in
don't have his chart.
Aquarius.
I don't have his chart,
Well,
but
but
because
of event-wise,
I have the ephemeris. He was born in the 2nd of October, 1978. On that day,
Saturn in Leo.
no. October. Sorry,
Okay.
October. So he's Libra basically, but his Mars.
No, but it wasn't Saturn in Leo at the time, or was it in Virgo?
No. Saturn is in Virgo. Saturn is in
Okay,
Virgo.
all right.
Mars, 8-degree Scorpio.
Ah,
Yes, and but Venus, 18-degree Scorpio.
okay.
Either side of this,
Yes,
you know,
yeah, it would be
this
picking up
drama.
what you're pointing out there, Rod. Obviously,
Yeah.
is that this opposition, this coming opposition between Mars and Saturn, is picking up his natal Mars and
Wait
Venus.
a minute. If from the modern view, he has a stellium in Scorpion, so Mars in 8-degree and Venus in 18-degree,
Yep.
and Uranus in 14-degree Scorpion.
So it's picking it. Yeah, he's Uranus opposition.
Yes, I think that's generation things.
Yeah, that's. I mean,
Yeah.
he's the same age as me, I think. So that's it's fully picking up.
Oh
that.
yes.
But you
But I mean,
always get
it's a perfect example, though, eh? It's like
yeah.
Saturn in Aquarius, social distancing
Oh
rules.
yes.
Mars and with Venus isn't in Leo yet, though, but the Mars in Leo opposing that. It's like Mars is about sex and desire and drive. Venus is usually the planet of sex, though, so maybe not. But if Venus comes to join that Mars, then
are we going to get more story
or something? And that would be or whatever, you know. But
yeah, I know.
Yeah, I don't know because it's slightly earlier. Venus isn't yet in Leo, I don't think so.
Yeah, but I think this is a very interesting example for what we're talking about, you know, and also spicy up.
It's picking up his natal Venus, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes. I always think when I see him, he always, when you see him on the TV, he's always got a smile on his face. He's always, you know, he always comes across as quite positive. But I've always, his chart makes sense now because I always have the impression that there's a lot more. I always think, why isn't this guy more stressed? Why isn't this guy coming across as exhausted and burnt out, given what he's had to go through? And that kind of makes sense when you look at his chart, you know, that it is all going on under the surface.
Yeah, if he's not going to show it. No.
I see.
Exactly. That makes sense, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's interesting. Okay, let's go to next topic. Well, we say we're going to review a little bit about Mercury retrograde, right? Yeah. So, do you have any interesting to report about Mercury retrograde?
Just one anecdotal thing. So Mercury obviously just turned direct again this week, which means it's moving forward. So it's a bit. I hope my mum doesn't mind me mentioning this, but my mum's selling a house at the moment, and she's had all kinds of to do with contracts and stuff and delays. So over the past month, She was waiting for the contract to be exchanged, and the solicitors weren't getting back to her, and things weren't moving forward. And of course, all that confusion started happening as Mercury went retrograde. And I said, Mum, it's going to be, the contract had to happen right at the end of this month. She's like, it has to happen before the end of this month or I'm going to be homeless. And I'm like, I think it'll happen this week on the Wednesday, because Mercury was going to go direct, just purely simple astrology transits. She texted me yesterday, Wednesday, the contract came through. So literally Mercury went direct, contract came through. So it was really like what Sue said in your interview. Oh, by the way, Rod, you mentioned Sue's doing the talk tomorrow. You guys have, just for anyone who hasn't seen it, these guys did an interview with Sue Tompkins on this channel, which you must look at because it's great. But yeah, it was good. But yeah, I think Sue said in that interview, astrology is sometimes very simple. And that was just an example of how it's so beautifully simple sometimes. It's just like, if something starts going backwards, contract-wise, when Mercury starts going retro, you can pretty much say, well, that's probably not going to go forwards until it stops and goes forward again. So, yeah.
It is like for me, it's like my experience of this whole set of course is really kind of, I mean, during last 3 weeks, I was like, oh my God, there's no one coming. Oh, so that I was worried about a lot of things, and I was still tidy up or reduce things. And then suddenly, once around the Mercury stationary, it just things like getting so busy. I was like, oh, thank God.
Yes. Yeah, it's so interesting how it works, isn't it?
Yes,
sometimes?
But as we know, it's so quite busy at this moment. Not Mercury, and also we got the Jupiter, and the Neptune is more like next soon. I think Neptune is more like now. All 10 stationary, and then going to retrograde. They go retrograde, not for moving forward. So about Jupiter, let's focus on more like a Jupiter. I mean. Maybe like for beginner, they will always consider two things. Jupiter in Pisces sounds kind of quite good, because in its own side. And then there's always a but it's retrograde. So it's like, is that good or bad? I just try to play the beginner. What would you say if you receive this kind of question?
Who?
Start from you then.
Okay. I would say from a traditional point of view, a retrograde planet is generally not as good as a forward moving planet, because it reverses its normal motion. So it usually signifies things that are delayed or that come undone. So it can signify something that, so if Jupiter in Pisces is something that's usually signifies things that are quite hopeful, quite optimistic, quite expansive. Those conditions may prove to be temporary. Say you begin something with Jupiter while it's retrograde. So Jupiter rules things like, I don't know, universities or religious institutions or something. Say you opened something while it was retrograde. It may be a temporary thing. That's not to say that it's bad, because some things are designed to be temporary. Some things are designed, and likewise, retrograde means going back over something, repeating something. So it really depends what you're talking about. If you're talking about something that you want to repeat or go back over or be a temporary thing, that's fine. If you're talking about something that you want to last for 1,000 years, then not so good. So Jupiter still has its same significations of the great benefic planet that generally signifies good fortune and sort of luckiness. And in Pisces, it's sort of the emotional domain. So it's sort of an open-hearted attitude to relationships, things like that. But anything that Jupiter rules that started when it's retrograde traditionally would be said to, as I say, be temporary. Or if you're reintroducing something that you've previously introduced, then that would also be fine. So
Mandi.
I mean, I want to make a distinction. Obviously Jupiter in retrograde at the moment in the sky, and then you've got, so that will be a transit your chart or to a country's chart or whatever, so it'd be a temporary transit, whereas if you were born on, you know, when Jupiter is retrograde, then that's a different thing. That's you know, you've got
Yes,
that
absolutely.
for your life.
That's
and
a really good
yeah.
point.
So if, for example, if the beginner was sort of, you know, learning about transits, they wanted to know about Jupiter retrograde transit. Really, I'm just going to echo what Marcus said. You know, you'll get 3 hits if Jupiter goes over your planet, you know, by conjunction or square or opposition. You know, the main sort of transits, especially there are more, but those are the main ones that we look at. Or a trine, for example, or even a sextile, the more sort of generous sort of aspects. But I would really, for transits, look at the conjunction, the opposition, the square, because those are the ones that really seem to sort of, you know, bring challenges and come to the fore more. So you're looking at that. You know, Jupiter will go over your planet, or it might be your angle, your ascendant, or your MC, for example, and then it will go back over it again. So you'll have a second so-called hit, and then you'll have the final third hit. You won't get more than 3 hits, I think, with Jupiter because of the speed of it. A very, very, very slow planet like Pluto or Neptune, for example, you can potentially have like 5 hits because of how slow it is. I've just come out of a 5-hit Neptune transit, and I can tell
God,
you know,
my condolences.
So sorry,
well
yeah,
done,
so
well
sorry.
you
done.
barely remember your own name at the end of it, but with Jupiter, exactly what Marcus said, you know, sort of it's about sort of something happens and there's an opportunity, and you know, you might follow the opportunity or you might not. Then something happens to sort of, you know, make you potentially to make you sort of think again, or a slight disappointment potentially with Jupiter in Pisces, and then you maybe get another chance again. And I do find with transits, you know, the sort of theory is like, that's the kind of theory of a 3-hit transit. You know, something happens and you go backwards, then it resolves, you can carry on. In reality, I don't find that not really works.
Yeah, it's not quite that linear, is it?
It's not that linear, but those are kind of things. If you are having a 3-hit transit to anything in your chart from Jupiter, it's worth just sort of, you know, journaling, or, you know, noting down the themes and the feelings and what happens and what doesn't.
And one point I'd like to make just annexed to that's brilliant, Mandy, because I think I totally agree about also it not being linear. It's a process, isn't it? And it's just so maybe high points in it. But what I think this is generally true, that with the benefics, Venus and Jupiter, you tend not to notice their transits as much very often. And I think this is universally true, unless, you know, very, very occasionally, if you have a stupendously brilliant Jupiter in your birth chart or something, you might win the lottery or something. But for most people, because we don't pick up on good stuff as much as we do crises.
How terrible we are.
Right. Yeah, well, no, that's just the way the human brain is wired. Obviously, we're designed for survival, right? So you know, your house burns down, you notice that, you know, you get a bit of tax relief and have a nice week. You're not going to notice that quite as much. You'll be like, oh, this was a good week.
Exactly.
But, so I think that's a really good point, Mandy, about journaling it, and Jupiter being about understanding things and wisdom. And wisdom being not something like the wisdom that Saturn gives you is the wisdom of understanding through trial. Like you get it because you've been through it. Yeah, he spanked you and you're like, I'll never forget that. The wisdom you get from Jupiter is that, aha moment. You may not even notice it. It's just things come together and you're like, oh, I understand this now. It's very gentle.
Yes.
And it's just so when Jupiter's going over something in your chart, I think that's a brilliant idea, Mandy, just to journal it and just to notice, because the more you pay attention to, this is a psychological trope, isn't it? The more stuff, the more you pay attention to something, the more of it you tend to get, in a way.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? Because you notice it more. So you're focusing on it more. So
I always say with Jupiter transits, I always say, like, one thing to bear in mind is, you know, one of the things to say, opportunities are going to come your way, it's going to be brilliant. Well, if an opportunity knocks on the door, you've got to be there to answer it.
Yes.
You know, like, there are things like winning the lottery, for example. You know, I've never really studied lottery, see what the transits are, but you know,
I haven't either.
It's that kind of thing. It's that kind of thing. And Jupiter can be associated a bit with God, and it's a bit like, there's a really famous joke which I think is quite Jupiterian, which is a guy's kind of like, he prays to God every night to win the lottery, prays for God. He doesn't win the lottery, and in the end, God goes, you know, meet me halfway, buy a ticket. And that, that kind of sums up sort of a Jupiter transit, really, you know.
Totally. I think that's
God.
brilliant, Mandy. That's exactly it, isn't it? You've got to. It's the open doors. It opens the doors and generates those opportunities. And so many times we're so either traumatized by previous Mars Saturn transits that we're waiting for the other shoe to drop, or we're sort of oblivious to it. We're kind of like, oh, this is nice. You know, so part of it is, we should be like enjoying and make hay while the sun shines.
Yes.
But you can actually capitalize on Jupiter transits by noticing those opportunities. And you don't necessarily have to do stuff. Buy the lottery ticket is a good example of something you could do, but it's just about doing the gratitude practice. And the more you with Jupiter, I think the more you notice it, the more of it you tend to get. I think that's a hypothesis. Don't know.
Well, hope so. Yeah. Well, it's so sweet, and I think we really enjoy that Jupiter moment when we talk about it. We couldn't stop, anyway, we talk about everything. We couldn't stop, but I think it's about the time. So I think we will leave the Venus conjunct Mars for next week. Maybe we will focus on that. And I also want to announce the next week I have another interview comes up. Is I interview Darby Costello.
Hey.
I love it. I really love it.
Ask Darby about Jupiter, Rod, because she's brilliant on Jupiter. I mean, she's interesting on lots of topics. But, what? Oh, you've done it.
I've done it. Yeah, so I couldn't ask it next time.
Okay.
Well, next week I'm going to interview Lynn. Tell me what you want to ask them.
Lynn Bell. Yeah, Lynn Bell. Yeah, Darby and Lynn are other really popular astrologers.
Yeah,
so they're doing talks for us.
Yeah.
The
Mundane
series.
Mundane Astrology series. We have Sue Tompkins tomorrow, 26th of June, and we have Darby talking about the navigate the past for the present. So it's in 10th of July, and we have Lynn Bell talking about the Saturn Uranus. So it's in 17th of July. Well, then we have Mandi. Mandi talking about Jupiter Saturn circle in 31st of July. So busy.
Fantastic. Do you want to put the web link on?
Definitely put
in the description underneath. That'd be fantastic.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So get booking, because certainly the early ones are booking up quickly, aren't they now?
Yes, definitely. Yes. Okay. Thank you, everyone, and see you next week. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good week. Bye.
Bye.